Hey everybody, this is John from Elite Personal Fitness. Today I wanted to talk to you about how to figure out your macros. Now this is like a very, you could go so deep into this conversation, but pretty much I'm just going to give you the basics of kind of how I would look at this. We don't typically prescribe macros for people. If someone's looking for it, we can talk about it and we can go into that. Some people sell this as a service of them just adjusting their macros and changing it from there, but I think it depends very specific on what your goals are. So I'm going to go over just very basic how you would figure these things out based off your goals and what you're looking for. Now, macros, what that is your macronutrients. Now, your macronutrients are, okay, protein, okay, carb, and fat. Okay. Now, basically, figuring out your macros is finding the correct balance based off of what you're looking for, based off of the body composition that you want to have, kind of how you would increase or decrease or keep them the same, or how many grams you would have of each, okay, to reach a certain goal. So with that, protein per like 1 gram equals 4 calories. The same with carbs, so it's 1 equals 4 calories. Now fat is 9 calories, okay? And just knowing that, okay, when you're doing all of these calculations, you would say, hey, well, first thing we need to know is how many calories do you need based off of your goal? So an easy calculation, which there's, again, a million ways you can do this. I think this is the easiest way. You would take your body weight, okay, and you would times it by 10, okay, to 15. Now, this 10 to 15, I would say this 10 would be, okay, I want to lose weight, okay, or lose fat, okay, and then the spectrum would go from 10 to 15 to building muscle, if you can read my handwriting, muscle, okay, or this would be like endurance, okay, because if you're trying to lose fat, we need to be in a caloric deficit. If we need to build muscle or gain weight, or we have a lot of work that we need to accomplish, okay, you would need to have more endurance, okay, or say, if you're doing a triathlon or doing a marathon, anything that is require, you have to do a lot of work, so then you need the fuel to fuel yourself. Now, that's where the spectrum would be. So say my body weight, we'll make it easy. Say I want to lose weight. Okay, my body weight's 200, so I would go 200, okay, times 10, okay, on the low end would equal 2,000 calories, okay. Now, from there I'd say, okay, so every day, and this is where I like to kind of almost stop with most of our people, because most of our people, they're trying to lose fat, okay, they want to get rid of unwanted body fat, they're trying to gain muscle, but that's not really their main goal. So like, their first goal would be like, I need to lose fat. Their second goal would be, I need to gain, I want to get strong. Really, they just want to gain stronger or get stronger, which would mean that they would want to increase some muscle mass. But they're not trying to like bulk up and get bigger. Their goals based off that is I would say, all right, well, if your main goal is to lose fat, then we're going to be on this lower end. We're going to be on the lower end of, like 10 to 12, okay, is where we're going to sit, 10 to 11, when we're doing your calculation. Now, if your goal was to lose fat but gain muscle, but the main part would be gaining muscle, you would say, all right, well, we want to be on the higher end because we're going to need more calories to do so, need more protein to do so, but we're not going to go on the highest end. We would do like a 13 or a 14 is where we would kind of sit. So depending on your goal, that's where we are going to kind of make some decisions. So if I weigh 200 pounds, I want to lose weight, I'm going to go on the lower end, go do 10. You don't need to go lower than that, okay? And then say 2,000 calories would be your main goal. Now, again, there's so many variables. Everybody is so different. It depends on where you are in your, fitness journey. Are you just starting out? I'd say, hey, let's just start at 2,000. We'll do that for 2 weeks. Try to do your best to stay as consistent with that. And then we'll make changes from there. So say if you're doing 2,000 calories and you're right on the money for 2 weeks and you're not losing weight, I'd be like, all right, let's drop it down a little bit. Let's go to 1,800 calories. then you're like, hey, I started losing weight, I'm consistent. Like, yeah, at first you're gonna drop more weight, than you would say in 6 months. But we're looking to say, hey, I'm gonna lose a quarter of a pound or half a pound a week, consistently over time. That's going to where we would kind of stay with most people. Now, if you want to go into your macronutrients and you really want to kind of do the math from there, then I would say our first thing that I really would want somebody to figure out is their protein. I think that's the most important. And usually our advice for people that are just like, hey, I'm working a lot, I got a family, I got to make sure everyone is eating, likes what they're eating, I got a lot of things going on, and say, hey, try to stick to 2,000 calories, track what you're doing, but focus on eating more protein. That's a very basic, let's start here and let's go from there. Now, if you're like, hey, I'm 200 pounds, I'm going to lose fat, I'm going to multiply this by 10, I have 2,000 calories, okay, I'm going to go protein. Another way to figure this out is I like to do another way to figure out your protein. The calculation I would say would be your body weight, okay, times 0.7 to 1 gram. So for every pound of your body weight, okay, would be either 0.7, okay, or 0.1 for every gram of protein. So what I mean by that is, the 1 is the very high end. So think like I'm a bodybuilder, I'm trying to get as big as I can, okay? Typically that's who I would say, hey, you should be doing, say 1 gram for every pound of body weight, okay? Body weight times 0.7, okay, would be figuring out how much, we are at, for protein. So this would be the lower end. For most people, I would say the average person just exercising, feeling good, this is where we're gonna be. Okay, so if we do 200, okay, times 0.7, okay, what's that math? 140? If it's not, we'll just guess it, we're fine. Just kind of getting numbers just to show you an idea. I should know that, but, so say we're gonna have 140 grams, okay, total that they're gonna have per day, okay, in their meals. Now, Colleen, do this math for me. Do 140 times 4. So, 560. So, this would equal 560 calories. So out of my 2,000 calories, okay, 560 of them are gonna be protein. Now from here, you pretty much do the same thing for carbs and fats. Now, I like people to have carbs. I don't want them to be super restrictive. Also too, most people in just everyday life are gonna have carbohydrates. I'm not, you're gonna require, especially if you're exercising, you need carbs. So I like this to be pretty similar to what they're doing for the protein, okay? Because the problem is if you start increasing fats, you have the 9 calories attached to every gram. So it's easy to get out of control with the fats, and we're not like it's not like, oh, when you exercise, you're gonna need the fats, because your body, we're sugar burners, and carbohydrates are sugar. So we want to use that with our fuel from exercise. So when we recover and fuel ourselves from exercise, that's what your body uses anyways, but fat is a part of the game, especially if you're having a lot more protein, your fat count is gonna go up. So this is where I say, this is where you need to start and go from there. Now, if you are on the other side of the spectrum where you're like, hey, we want to build muscle and endurance, okay, then I would take your body weight and we would multiply it by 15, okay? And then we would say, hey, let's take your body weight and times it by, say, 1 for the gram, so we would have 200 grams of protein. Okay, then we would times that by 4, then you would get an idea of where you're at, and you kind of fill in the gaps from there. So this is a very, very basic. We could go deep on a million different ways. You can go in some people are, they have it flipped where they're like, you know what, I'd rather have the protein in the carbs, or excuse me, the protein in the fats very high and the carbs very low, depending on the person. Everyone thinks that they need to have less carbs just because of what they've been told. There's this thought of like, oh, well, I just like carbs, so I have to restrict them. And it's like, no, you can still have them, The idea is you just have to maintain your calorie balance. Okay, so if you're going over in calories, you're not going to lose weight. End of story. You can change these however you want. Someone can say to you, hey, well, you could have, majority of it be protein and fat and 0 carbs. You can eat as much as you want, but as long as you're, doing that, you'll be okay. That is not true. You will not lose weight unless you're in a caloric deficit, so you're burning more than you're taking in. It doesn't need to be a massive deficit. We don't want you eating 1,200 calories, okay? When you need that extra 400, that's a big change, okay? So I would say depending on the person, even 1,500 calories is extremely low. So most people should be able to do around, I would say, like 1,750 on the low end to 2,000 for most people's calories, depending on how big they are, depending on how, how much they need to lose. Also, too, with the body weight, or with the figuring out your protein, for the most part, I like to cap this at, like, say, 200. So say you're 250 pounds and you're trying to lose weight, like 200 grams of protein is a lot of protein, and that's going to be very difficult for people to reach. So we're always saying, hey, try to have protein in every meal. That will help. Okay, if you try to have protein only like at dinner, it's going to be very difficult for you to get to, say, 560 grams of calories of protein, or hitting 140 grams. This is kind of as basic as I can make it. So like I said, we can go in a million different routes, but I would say, first off, the biggest thing is you need to find out how many calories you need. So if you're on somebody on the endurance end, I would say, hey, let's do like 14, your body weight times 14. And then it kind of depends on, if you're doing triathlon stuff, you might need 14, 15, so it depends on how much fuel you're using. And you're probably going to need way more carbs, okay, than somebody that is, trying to lose weight, just because you need that fuel for your muscles. Your muscles need glycogen, so or you're going to feel flat. You're not going to have any energy, and you're going to just die out. No matter what everyone says, oh, you're going to burn your fat and use ketosis, all that stuff. You're going to need carbs if you're doing a sport like that, or it's going to be extremely difficult. So again, it's very dependent on what your goals are. For people that are coming here, that just kind of what I would call just normal people that are trying to feel better, get stronger, lose some unwanted body fat, I would say doing your math for your body weight times 10, and then going from there, and then consulting with somebody and saying, like, hey, I'm doing this. Really what it comes down to is, if say you're doing 2,000 calories a day for food, and you're not losing weight, which is your main goal, then you need to go down just a little bit. You don't want to take big jumps, and then try to do that for 2 weeks and then see where you're at. And even if somebody is figuring out your macros for you, it doesn't need to be as consistent as you think, because for the most part, you should be kind of following the same thing to like 10 to 12 weeks, okay? 8 to 12 weeks probably be a better idea. And then, like, again, say you're going 2 weeks and your main goal is to lose weight, and someone's creating your macro plan for you, and you're not losing weight, then you need to have less. Because after 2 weeks, you should have lost something. So it usually is just going to be like, all right, we're just going to have less of what we're already doing. It doesn't need to be super complicated. We're like, you know what, let's drop your carbs, and that's where we're going to lose the calories. You could lose them from everything, but I would say lose them from your carbs and fats first, because we're trying to keep the protein as high as you can. So if you have any questions, or you have any specific questions about this or what you would recommend, please ask. We will figure it out and send you that information. Okay, this comes free with all of our memberships. We do nutrition for all of our clients. And if they're like, hey, I really want you to do my macros, that's what I'm better at sticking to those exact numbers, then we do that. But for the most part, we go off calories and then go from there. So again, if you guys have any questions, please let us know. Thanks for watching.